What are we
Hello, guys.
recording?
No, I'm recording right now. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone. So today is Tuesday, and the first meeting. I'm really glad and appreciate to have Yves Laros from EOS Nation, CEO and founder of EOS Nation, and really happy to see him here on our interviews. This is one of the BPs who support MEET.ONE Sidechain, and also one of the BPs who came to our office, the first from the foreign BPs who came to our office and MEET.ONE from the beginning. I'm really glad to participate any activities with these guys. They're really active, and Eve traveling a lot around the world. So, Eve, hello.
Hello, Dimitri. First of all, thank you very much. I don't know many people know, but the first person who invited us to come to China the first time was MEET.ONE. It was you. And so our first trip was MEET.ONE that invited us, and we weren't able to make it down to Xiamen, so we made it down on the second trip, and we spent almost a week at your offices with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eve. We really appreciate it. It was nice time. A lot of talks, a lot of things. Participated even happy time, like some party, and really happy also to that Marty joined it. And I think your team is awesome, and you guys have similar visions, and you head into to your own aims. And this is the way how kind of like distributed teams work in efficient way. So this is a really good example. Uh, I think the EOS Nation is heroic BP because it's one of the BPs who from the beginning was on the bottom of the list of the mainnet BPs, and they slowly get votes and get to the top 21. So this is amazing, and I think it's much harder than you got just in the top from the beginning and you do not worry about the votes. So that's why I think this is a prominent BP, and we are really happy that they participate MEET.ONE sidechain. So the first question, maybe shortly, why your block producer called EOS Nation? It's a really nice name, but can you introduce?
The idea is that when we first started, we were thinking of doing a decentralized autonomous corporation, so similar to EOS DAC, because the founders of EOS Nation are spread throughout Canada and the US. And the idea was we wanted to kind of retain that decentralization. We were thinking, what if we could do a decentralized block producer within a decentralized system? That would be kind of the ultimate goal. And we started pushing that, and the idea kind of fell through after a while. We just decided not to pursue that, but we wanted to keep that decentralization aspect. And at the time, a lot of the block producers that had already started publicly and officially announcing were putting EOS and the name of the city, or EOS and the name of the country. And we didn't want to stick with kind of the basic formula at the time, which was very specific. We wanted to retain that decentralization, and we had just developed our ambassador program, and we came up with the name EOS Nation because the idea was that everybody could be a part of EOS Nation. So instead of just being a specific place, we didn't know how this would all play out. We figured wherever you are in the world, you could be part of EOS Nation. And then that's kind of what developed our ambassador program as well. That was one of our core values in the very beginning, was to have people from all around the world be able to contribute to what we saw as being, I guess, an amazing project that could potentially create things that we had not seen yet in the blockchain space.
Who chose this name?
It came from, we were going to be EOS Canada. We were thinking of being EOS Canada before EOS Canada was in play. Alex from EOS Canada actually was in EOS Nation before they formed EOS Canada.
Right.
But the idea was that we had a Facebook group at the time. Three of our founders had a Facebook group called EOS Nation. And we just thought it was appropriate to continue that name and to keep going down the path that they'd already created.
All right, all right. That's nice, interesting. I really like your name. I would like to have it as well. uh, Tell me, please, something about your team, like about your members.
Something about our members.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
actually, in the same vein as what we're talking about, nation, I'm part of First Nations in Canada. So in Canada, there are three Indigenous groups: the First Nations, the Inuit, and the Métis. And I'm part of the First Nations. And so for me, the name EOS Nation has a special feel and a special I guess I have a special relationship with the name as well because I'm First Nations in Canada. That's one thing that not many people know about me, and it kind of comes and touches to the nation aspect as well.
What does it mean First Nations?
I guess within different countries, you have different indigenous groups. So groups that were there from, in Canada, we say from time immemorial. And so from the very beginning, meaning before the settlers came from Europe, there were peoples that were already here within the lands that we now call Canada. And a lot of those peoples were nations. And so they're called First Nations in Canada. There's 654 groups that compose the First Nations in Canada for a population of about 1.5 million people, which is roughly 4% of the Canadian population identifies and is recognized as First Nations.
So you are many generation deep roots in Canadian, right?
Yeah, well, before Canada became Canada, before the European settlers came to Canada, there were people here, and my family lineage on my mother's side is originally from this land.
All right, all right. Interesting. Maybe we can have historical moments about Canada on another video. But right now, let's focus on the blockchain. So yeah.
But that's something
So
that's interesting.
the question was, yeah, cool. It's interesting. I think we'll have a lot of views. The question was about your team.
Yes. So what do you want to know about my team? You mean something special about
No, just call them. What is their names, what they're doing, what their responsibilities. So the users know better about your team.
People in the EOS Nation. We're now up to 38 different members, and so I won't go through all of the names.
No. Go through the core. Go through the core.
All right. Well, in the core, we have 7 people. And so we have Denis, who's our CTO. He has a background in network engineering and in geospatial engineering. He did that for the military in Canada for 13 years prior to starting work at Facebook, and then joined and created EOS Nation. We have Daniel, who's our COO. Who worked in the finance industry as a project manager and who's been project managing various projects, specifically right now, the lost key case automated solution. And so that's Daniel. We've got Matt, who's our CIO, who takes care of all the infrastructure. And Matt comes, he's an engineer as well, and he comes from, I guess, the typical developer IT side of things. He worked at HP for multiple years, and actually he was set up in Shanghai, and he was responsible for the Chinese arm of HP for multiple years and had a huge team in Shanghai. Going through the list, we've got Vincent, who's our CFO, who's an architectural engineer. So we have different engineers in the team. We've got a software engineer and a geospatial engineer and architectural engineer. And he was working on buildings and building codes, and specifically did a lot of the blockchain, I guess, mining operations within Canada, because he's in the Quebec region. A lot of miners throughout the world come and set up shop, and we're setting up shop in Quebec because of the low electricity cost, the free water, and because of solid power there. And so he was doing that prior to joining EOS Nation. We've got Stefan, who was one of the first crypto evangelists way before, and he's our CCO, so he takes care of the community, Chief Community Officer. He takes care of ambassadors. He started a crypto, I guess, evangelization, crypto education group really early on, way before the last bull run. And he was one of the early adopters that tried to get everybody together. And fun fact, he's the one that brought everybody within EOS Nation Core together as a team, because he had such a vast network of individuals, and he's the one who kind of brought us all together. We have Dave, who's in the United States. He's in Texas. He's previously an educator, and he does a lot of our social media and our video content. So big shout out to Dave, because a lot of the videos that you see from EOS Nation are all from Dave and his background and what he does and his scripting. And the last person that I'm missing, feels like I'm missing somebody. Now I'm going to get in trouble.
Seems
I
like
don't know at this point because I don't know who I went through.
it's all right. It's all right.
I'll think, but I think I've named everybody at this point.
Can you tell something about Marty?
About Martin, sure.
Yeah.
Martin was one of our first ambassadors. So Martin, which you've met, he's our Asia regional director. He started off as an ambassador. And so Martin is a German expat who was living in China, and he applied to be our first ambassador in China because we were looking for a presence in China to try and expand there. And he was well into crypto, and over time, he helped me prepare for my first Asia tour, the one that basically you invited me to, and anyways, I went in Seoul. I went to Seoul, went to Korea a little bit, and I went up to China. And after that trip, we offered him a full-time position. So Marty was our first full-time employee. And he's been helping us ever since. I just came back from China again. He helped prepare the tour, and now Martin is taking care not only of China, but he's going around Southeast Asia. So right now he's in Indonesia. He just landed this morning. He'll be there for a month or so. And he's going to be doing the tour between Thailand, the Philippines, South Korea, Indonesia, and then back to China. So he's going to go around year round and develop the communities in each of those locations.
I asked this on purpose because if people want to connect with EOS Nation here in China, maybe the best way they contact Martin first. Because he was responsible, and he can speak some Chinese as well. So this is
of course.
That's cool thing. One question about infrastructure. Can you tell us something about your block producer infrastructure, how it organized, and who is dealing with that?
Sure. So Matt is our lead for infrastructure. And Matt and Denis basically take care of the infrastructure, but Matt is really doing the infrastructure. And we just recently onboarded somebody else to help with Matt, Yves, who is part of our hardware sourcing and hardware setup, I guess, team. And the idea is that when we first started EOS Nation, we weren't really sure what the hardware requirements would be in EOS. And so we started as a BP that was running cloud services. And over time, the idea was always, and in our roadmap, the idea was always to switch over to bare metal. So we switched over to bare metal on testnet and in our lab because we have a couple of data center locations. We switched everything over to the lab, full bare metal, about 2 months ago. And we're now switching everything over to full production, possibly this week or early next week, for everything that's production ready. In our main data center. So outside of the lab where we kind of have this extra location that we use physically as a test net and that we use for some of our backup nodes, but we're switching everything over to mainnet production. And for example, the Sidechain, everything is going to be stored in our other main tier 3 data center location. So EOS Nation will now be running full bare metal. We think that that's really important, especially for the long-term health and growth of the ecosystem. Having bare metal services, and not just bare metal services, having a mix or having a hybrid. So I'm not an advocate for that says that everybody should be doing this, but I think that having redundancy between cloud services, bare metal services, and even having some hybrids. So for ourselves, we're going to have our main, our backup, and then the redundant of that, everything's going to be on bare metal. But then what we're going to do is then fail safe. So if ever everything goes down, we're on different power grids, we're in different geographical locations, different data centers. If everything were to fail over, then we always have the fail over on cloud. So we still think that it's very important to have kind of that double, triple, quadruple redundancy. And that's how we set up our hardware, because the idea with the block production is to be up 24/7, 365 days a year. And one of the things that we do specifically is the optimization. So if you look at executive times, our hardware is highly optimized in terms of block production and execution times. We're a sub-millisecond. Which
be lower with consumption of CPU do not have long latency, do not drop blocks, kind of these things. Yeah, it's you optimizing is cool. And can you tell us something about your team did in the past? Milestones, important things.
I guess one thing that comes to mind is we worked on the referendum for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And so we're key and instrumental in getting the referendum tools out. We did the tally portion. We also did the project management portion. We're now working on the lost key cases. And so we are doing the project management for that. And we just recently released EOS Detective, which is a technical tool that we're using in order to be able to visualize token transfers on the mainnet, and more recently on Boss as well.
Later, we will add links to the video and to the article about all things you did before, like referendum, detective, and third thing you said is
lost key. The lost keys, which should be
lost key solution, right?
Yeah, the lost key solution for the people who have been following and do have questions. The lost key solution will be proposed to the block producers within 1 or 2 weeks. And if approved, if the MSIG is approved, that will see roughly 700 to 900 cases fully automated and lost keys restored to the rightful owners.
This is a cool thing. This is really amazing thing, because this is how blockchain come into the business. If people made some mistake, there is a way back. Pretty good.
When some of these, it's not even mistakes. So we know that for a period of roughly 24 hours, the Block.ONE website, there was an issue with it, and the people that were entering their keys to get a key pair were the information that was being output was erroneous. And so sometimes it's not even for these specific cases, for what will be applicable and within the scope of lost key cases, fully automated solution. Some of them, it's not even their fault. It's not that they lost the key. It's not that they mistyped or miswrote the key. Some of them belong to that 24-hour or so period on the official Block.ONE website.
Oh, yeah. This actually pretty often happen to people, right? It's not so seldom issue.
Right now, like I said, there's roughly 700 to 900. I'm not sure the exact number of individual cases. And if I'm not mistaken, the amount of EOS that will be unlocked by this is well over 1 million EOS. And so it will bring back a lot of value to a lot of people. And again, the idea behind this is it's fully automated, it's fully traceable.
I think we need to spend more energy to show to another blockchain participants and users what we can do over here, because they don't have this option in another blockchain. And I think we need to spend more energy and time talking outside of our community. That's my vision, and I think you also think so.
And that's one of the things that we do. I mean, we do host a lot of meetups through our ambassador program. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 2018, we started hosting meetups roughly in April. Just before main launch is when we started ramping up a little bit. So the month of May, we were quite busy with meetups throughout the world. And over that period of time up until December 2018, we hosted I believe it's just above over 60 meetups worldwide. And some of that is in high schools, in universities. The idea is really to reach out to people that otherwise might not know blockchain or have heard of blockchain, but they don't really know what it does, what it is, how they can get involved, why it matters. And so we do try and target as much as possible, not only echo chamber within the community that currently exists, which is really important to keep those people informed, but also the people outside of the community that are looking for projects to develop on. They've heard potentially of this thing called blockchain, and they want to know more. And we also target people that don't even know what blockchain is and won't even know what blockchain is, like I said, in high schools. I did a talk at a university actually in China for economics students, and they were wondering, they were going to graduate the following year, and they're wondering, what kind of work they can do and how they can get involved and what kind of potential jobs they could get if they did decide to start learning about the blockchain. So it really has to start at the grassroots level, and ideally over time it really has to start at a younger age so that people understand earlier on why this is so important.
Right. Can you tell us something about your last trip to China?
Sure. So I just came back last week. I spent another 2 weeks in China. I visited a lot of block producers that I had not met before this trip around, and so a lot of the new block producers that have been in the top 21 or I guess the top 30 over the last 2 or 3 months. So since my last tour. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting this time around is the concept of inward versus outward, which I'll speak to a little bit later. I don't want to spill the beans here, but I've been really trying to focus on what are key differences between kind of what we see in Telegram and what we don't see in Telegram. Because there's a lot of work that's being done in China, particularly in Korea as well. And I really want to bring light to that because when we're in Telegram day in and day out, it's very easy to forget that there's a huge part of the community, a huge part of the world that is dominating. Realistically, the Chinese are dominating their markets. EOS is king in China. There's really no other cryptocurrency or any other blockchain project that even comes close to touching EOS. And in all aspects, that's clearly because of the work of the block producers and the other stakeholders that are interested in EOS within China. And so I want to bring light to that because I think it's really important for people who don't necessarily get the chance like I do to go out to China, to be on the ground and to meet with people. I think it's really important for them to see the work that's being done. And there are differences and there are challenges to communication. For example, WeChat versus Telegram. You've got Chinese Mandarin versus English. You've got the VPN issues with the Great Wall. And so all of those things make it difficult to keep those links of communication open. And what we try to do at EOS Nation is really
totally right. Yeah, you're totally right. A couple words about the project. You just start talking about bending east and west. About the link bridge.
Yeah. Well, link bridge is essentially like-minded individuals, like I just mentioned, other block producers or other individuals that represented block producers. So we've got Marshall Long from BP Fish and Dafeng Guo from EOS Asia, as well as Joe Vanelli from EOS Asia, and more recently, Benny Hadak from Liquid EOS. And so these are individuals that also believe that the community is really at the core of one of the greatest value assets or value upbringings within EOS. And in order to keep fostering that community, to keep fostering the discussions that can occur within the community in order to keep that project EOS strong, that we need to communicate and we need to facilitate communication because sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's challenging. And so we try to sponsor events and attend events and really keep that link strong.
Yes, guys, can you hear? So we need to facilitate communication. That's what we are doing, and we need to communicate more because in such case we will get consensus. And the last question to the Yves about, I would like to ask what you will wish to the users of MEET.ONE in future and why they need to vote for EOS Nation.
What do I wish to the MEET.ONE users of the future? I wish them, well, first of all, if we're going to talk about the MEET.ONE chain, I wish that there's a lot of adoption. I wish that a lot of users come on and that the cost threshold to come on and be able to participate in the MEET.ONE chain is greatly reduced as compared to what we saw, let's say, in EOS. And the idea behind that, and kind of to touch upon why EOS Nation decided to be a block producer on the MEET.ONE chain, is because we do have a significant portion of our community that's in countries where the monetary policies have made it so that they have they're either unbanked or they have very limited access to banking services. And when we saw the price of EOS rise, as well as the cost of RAM rise, and when the CPU thresholds were very high as well in December, we saw that it was very difficult for our community in those countries, in those respective areas, to participate, to be able to play the games, to be able to enjoy what EOS has to offer. And we believe that the MEET.ONE offering of greatly reducing the cost for that will enable a significant part of our community to be able to still enjoy that, all while potentially also learning about blockchain, learning about the different projects before perhaps accumulating enough assets to be able to go on to different chains, for example, like the mainnet. Why vote for EOS Nation? Because we do everything we can to give the community a voice. From the very beginning, we've been grassroots, on the ground, talking to people and trying to bring a voice of all the different stakeholders as much as possible to the block producer table.
Thank you, Yves. Thank you. And I would like to say that all of us users and BPs in EOS ecosystem, all of us are EOS Nation, basically. This is a really good. It's like really win-win-win-win solution.
I guess. Yeah, we've heard Block One say that at some point. I don't remember. I think it was at a hackathon. I think the London hackathon or the San Francisco hackathon. They said, "Welcome EOS Nation, welcome everybody." I'm like, yes, free advertisement for us.
They say that, right? Thank you for having you over here. Thank you for spending your time. By the way, what is your time in your time zone?
10:30 right now, 10:30 p.m.
All right. Thank you for staying late to being on the call with us. And
thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's keep in touch, and we'll see you in future. And let's talk in Telegram and add more users and bring more values to our community.
For sure. Thank you very much for having me on, Dimitri.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.